Today I'll be talking about my plan to run a sub 3 hour marathon. I'll be discussing the key points I'll be focusing on during my training that are based off advice I found online from professional athletes and runners who have managed to break the sub 3 hour marathon time, as well as sharing the specifics of my marathon training, including the different phases I will be implementing, as well as timelines and goals for my weekly mileage and speed as I progress throughout my training. Now, just to give you all a brief background of where I'm starting, I've realistically only had about 2 years of just recreational running where I haven't really had any mileage goals for the week. My biggest running block was probably about 8 weeks of just 30 miles a week. Aside from that, I really haven't had any focused training on anything. I've just maybe had a couple little short runs here or there, but nothing longer than about 5 miles at a time. My primary focuses and tips for myself based on advice I've seen online from professional marathon runners, and these are more philosophies based off that advice. Firstly, if I'm not recovering well, I'm not going to run. Okay. Each week, I will have a plan. It'll have maybe Monday or Tuesday doing an easy run and then a fast run, or however I have it broken up. But if I'm not recovering well, if I'm not stretching, if I'm not getting good sleep, then I won't run. Because at that point, I'm making the decision to, instead of push on and add that extra training load, I'm deciding to instead recover, even if I don't necessarily need it. But I don't want to take the risk of potentially injuring myself and then causing me to be out for longer than 2 or 3 weeks. And that is a very important thing just in general, but especially for this because I've never run a marathon before. So I'm going to need as much time as I can to get one to a place where I can run a marathon very quickly, but two, to then push towards the sub 3 hour mark. It's not an easy pace. It's quite fast. I believe exactly it's a 6 minute, 52-second minute per mile for 26.2 miles. That is not slow. That's very fast. Even though my mile time is much faster than that, it's in the lower 5 minute paces, and that's based off runs I've done recently. This is still a very fast pace. So my number one is recovery. If I am not feeling great, if I'm feeling weak, and this isn't to say like, oh, I can't be like sore or have like I can't go to the gym and then come back and be sore and then the next day run. No, this is just a check for myself to hold myself accountable where if I don't get good sleep one night, then I'm pausing training the next day and be like, okay, I need to make sure I'm good to go because this is a hard workout and I have an increased risk of injury. This one is just based on I'm going to focus on recovery more and to get more out of my training sessions. Now, the second thing is stretching and good warm-ups and cool downs. One of the things I've noticed in the past with myself is I like to just go out and start running. And that's okay for some of the runs, but if I'm trying to push my mileage from 20 or 30 miles a week up to 50 and 60, I need to be doing as many things right as I can. And that's going to include stretching before a run, warming up properly, getting my heart rate a little elevated, getting warm so I'm not running any risk of hurting myself. Because in the past, I have had issues with overtraining. And it's something that when you get to that point and you are overtraining and you're experiencing the symptoms of that, you have to stop. At least to my knowledge, there's not any way to keep training a ton and keep pushing the needle forward without cutting back training load significantly just to focus on recovering from doing too much at once. This is more to make sure that during the workouts, I'm going to be doing everything I can before, like immediately before and after the workouts. I'm doing everything I can to promote recovery and to just properly warm up so that I'm also not starting cold and then just running more of a risk of injuring myself, especially on those days where I'm trying to run faster. I'm not as concerned on the easy days where I'm just setting out at a 9 to 10 minute pace and just kind of hitting the easy 6, 7 miles. But on the days where I'm doing speed, a warm up and cool down is a non negotiable. The third thing I'll be focusing a lot on, as I said before, this is all based on advice from professional marathoners. This is nutrition, specifically drinking enough water. At least for me, I've noticed in the past, I tend to not drink enough water, which causes me to cramp more after and during workouts. And also, you just need to drink a lot of water so that you're able to recover better, and these all very much tie into each other. So honestly, this could just be one point in that I'm going to be focusing on my recovery specifically. The training is there, but recovery is the most important thing by far. So the specific phases I will be implementing in my training are a base building phase, which is specifically geared towards trying to improve my running economy or basically become a more efficient runner. The speed phase is to get faster. That is just straight up get faster. Work on running these paces for longer for the marathon. And then I'll have race specific training. That'll be focused on my fueling during the race, making sure all my gear works. Probably the biggest emphasis is on just making sure I'm able to fuel and take in water for these longer runs. And then it'll also include more marathon specific runs where it's long runs at marathon pace that aren't a full marathon, but they're just as long as your normal long runs. And then as I get closer to the race, I will have my taper phase, which is just deloading, cutting back about 30 to 50%, and then preparing for the race, which should be very soon. To reiterate, my four main phases will be a base building phase, it'll be a speed phase, it'll be a race specific phase, and then a taper phase. And that'll all be leading up to the marathon. Now, to hit on the base building phase, typically this is about 6 to 12 weeks, or at least this is what I have found in listening to a lot of these professional athletes. I am on a much larger timeline. I started my marathon training February 2nd for a marathon in December. So I almost have an entire year. I want to say about 45 weeks to be more accurate. But my main focus during this phase is to take it very easy and slowly build mileage, at least up to 50, because I think that is about the number I'll need to be running a week to really be able to even have a chance of running a sub 3 hour marathon. Ideally, I want to get between 50 or 60 miles a week. However, I don't know if I'll be able to build up to that in just a year. However, it's also a good thing that I'm having a larger training time of just 45 weeks. So I'm going to be able to have a very long base building phase. My plan is to extend this phase all the way through the summer. Right now it is April 12th. So that'll give me about 4 weeks, and then it hits summer, and then I'll have the rest of the summer just to focus on running long, slow. And that's not to say I won't have any workouts which are faster, but that won't be my primary focus. My primary focus will be on just increasing my mileage in the easy runs and then increasing my mileage on a long run. Ideally, I want to get up to being able to do about a 15-mile long run on Saturdays or Sundays. However, like I said, I will be focusing on recovery and how I'm feeling more than just trying to hit these goals and hit these numbers, because I think if you take recovery off the number one thing that you're focusing on, then you make a lot more room to get injured. And at least for me personally, that is what I have seen in the past whenever I've tried to train for any like shorter race like a 5K or a mile or a mile and a half. Now, the second phase I will be doing is the speed phase. This will primarily focus on 2 workouts for me. I think I will have this be 6 to 10 weeks, maybe a little bit more depending on how I'm feeling or how much time I have after my base building phase. And the 2 workouts this will focus on specifically are an interval workout in the middle of the week and then a long run with some marathon pace miles. Usually, I think that'll be on Saturday or Sunday for me. It really will just depend on what my schedule looks like during my next semester at college. Few workouts that I'll probably switch in and out, but a lot of the progressions will just be a lot of intervals, faster at marathon pace or faster in marathon pace, and then my long runs will be where I have the more longer sustained workouts at marathon pace. Following this, I'll have the race specific phase. This is about 6 to 10 weeks, and this will be at the end of it between 2 to 3 weeks out from my marathon. My biggest focus here will be longer long runs, and they will be more at marathon pace or at marathon pace, and these could be anywhere from 16 to 20 miles. I really don't think I'll push it too much farther than that, just because I am a little bit of a newer runner and am more inexperienced in running marathons, as this is my first time actually training for one, and in December will be my first time actually running one. Again, just to reiterate, recovery first, training second. If I injure myself, then training and the marathon doesn't even matter because I can't run it anyway. But this race specific phase will have more marathon-esque workouts. That'll be, like I said, these long runs where I'll just be at marathon pace, just cruising. And during those, the biggest focus will be fueling and hydrating while running. Because during a marathon, at least from what I have seen from a lot of these other professional athletes who have run marathons, is that if you do all the training and everything right and you show up to race day and you're ready to go, one of the only things that can kill you is if you do not fuel right. Because if you don't fuel right, you're going to hit the wall, which essentially all that means is you'll be running and then you'll run out of energy and you will feel so tired and not be able to run at that pace any longer. That is why I'll be focusing on practicing to fuel, and it'll allow my body to adapt so I can actually fuel more and be even farther away from that line of just running out of energy. Because the last thing I want to do for this race is show up, be ready to go, and be able to complete this goal and then hit the wall at mile 20 or whatever, just because I didn't practice enough in my fueling and I hadn't figured that out earlier. That would just be devastating because I would have had 30, 40 weeks of training behind me, be able to run it, and then just because I messed up in one thing, literally just fueling, that would be very devastating. So for the race specific phase, it'll be about 6 to 10 weeks. My primary focus will be the marathon. And what I mean by that is I'll be having my long run will shift from being this 15-mile long run with some marathon pace into it to being all marathon pace and pushing upwards from 15 to maybe 18 or even 20, during which I'll be focusing on fueling. I'll be testing out my gear and using my race shoes, and then also the other equipment that I'll be using during the race. This is primarily to get me ready for actually running the marathon. During this training, this phase 2, I'll be running a half marathon, doing a half marathon workout. This is something I'll cover later, but essentially the reason, at least that I've been told, you want to do this is because you get the nerves at race day, and you also get the challenge of being disciplined with your running, meaning that you don't go out too fast. And you may say, okay, a half marathon is completely different than a marathon, and you're right. The way I will do this, though, is run a little bit before, so like 3 miles, do the workout, run 3 miles after. But during the half marathon, I will treat it like a marathon. I won't try and set any personal bests in the half marathon. I'm running at a 6:50 pace for 13 miles, give or take 0.1. It's to focus on practicing. It's to focus on practicing for the actual marathon. And this, I think the one I have in mind is an Oktoberfest half marathon. It's in October on 26th, just a half marathon. This will be one of my big workouts to really see if I'm ready to run at this pace for the full marathon. And if I am and I crush it, I'm ready. But if I'm not, it'll be a way for me to just see what my actual marathon pace is. And as this is my first marathon, I do want to hit my goal of sub 3 hour. However, if I miss by a little bit, I won't be absolutely crushed because I'm coming into this as a complete beginner, other than a few months of, really focused effort on it, and maybe a few years of just kind of running for fun. Now, moving on to the taper phase. The goal of this phase is to prepare myself for the marathon by mostly recovering. This is a phase where I will cut my mileage by 30 to 50%. The intensity will remain the same and all the workouts I will be doing will remain the same, but I will just be running a lot less. The reason behind that is so that I reduce volume so much that even I still am training and I'm still staying in my peak shape, but I'm recovering so that when I show up to the race day, I'll be ready to run my best and I'll be in the best shape I can be. Um, very, very just well recovered, ready to go. That feeling of well restedness and just like amped up. That's what this phase is geared towards doing. It's just taking you from the training, letting you fully recover, so that when you show up to race day after these 2 to 3 weeks, you'll be able to do your best performance, and you won't be sore from any workouts, or you won't have anything like that. And you can be sore and not be fully recovered even without feeling sore. I'll use an example, but like deadlifting. Eddie Hall, for instance, one of the things he said is that you cannot deadlift every single day. You can't just go there and do your max deadlift every single day and expect improvement, because all you're doing by doing that is you're doing your best effort, but you're not giving yourself enough time to actually recover from it and then to build stronger. Your body's just like, oh, we just gotta fix this so that tomorrow we can get it. And I may be remembering this wrong, but I think he was saying that whenever he would do his big deadlift workout or like really go for his max, it would take him a week or even more to fully recover from that. That wraps up the phases. Again, the phases I will be implementing in my training plan are a base building phase, a speed phase, a race specific phase, and then a taper phase, which will be right before my marathon. Hopefully, by the end of all that, I'll be in shape for a sub 3 hour and be ready to go, so that December I can officially say I've qualified for the Boston. If you made it this far in the video, thank you for watching. Be sure to share this with your friends, like, subscribe, and comment so you can be notified on future videos and see my progress.